No,
Wait,
you
wait, wait,
said
wait. I never said that. I never said that. I'm saying, look at your standard. You want to critique about the Birmingham manuscript, which the date range is falling. It's possible that it's falling during the life of the prophet. But you don't have a single New Testament manuscript, even within the possibility that is within the 1st century. Your earliest fragment is the 2nd century. If you have a 1st century, what? I would love that. And this is why Bar Ehrman mentioned it is absolutely amazing, astounding that we have the Birmingham manuscript. If any Christian had any manuscript that is within the 1st century, that would be absolutely brilliant. And you see the whole Christian world, hallelujah, we found the 1st century manuscript. But yet they want to critique about the Birmingham manuscript. I mean, come on. Where do you hold the standard here? I'm sorry, you have no foundation.
Is that my question, Raihan?
You have no foundation.
What was the question? Was that my question, Raihan?
That was. And you didn't like my answer.
Okay.
But please counter.
Number 5. I'm potentially final.
Number 1.
Why should I believe that the date range that covers Muhammad's prophethood is more likely than the date range that covers the time before he was even born, when the possibility is equal for both time periods?
I agree with you. It's a fair point. I agree with you.
So why should I go with your time period?
Is it equally possible that the Birmingham manuscript was
Yes,
fantastic?
but no, there's a problem. There's a problem. Well, Raihan,
What's the problem, David?
Do you have any 1st century? Do you have any 1st century?
What are you looking at?
Do you have any 1st century New Testament
Raihan. Again. Sorry, Raihan. My apologies.
Raihan.
Raihan. Again. It is equally possible that it comes within his lifetime and before. That's not a good thing. Right? So, why should I believe? What's your arguments for it coming in his lifetime versus before?
Because it is equally possible that the Birmingham manuscript is within the lifetime of the prophet. Now, can you give me equal evidence for the biblical manuscript? Do you
Okay,
have
so then
let me go Bar Ehrman. Let me go Bar Ehrman. I don't know. Let me go. Let me go.
He said multiple times it's equally as possible. So no, if he's saying equally, here's the issue. That means that the Quran could be. There's an equal possibility that it was written by Muhammad or even somebody who came before Muhammad.
Okay.
So that's insane. That doesn't help you guys, it hurts you guys.
So here's Bar Ehrman. Here's Dr. Bar Ehrman. This is Dr. Bar Ehrman's comment regarding the Birmingham manuscript. It's called an astounding Quran manuscript discovery. Okay? Now, let's see what Bar Ehrman has to say, yeah?
Bear in mind, people, that Bar Ehrman is not an Islamic
No, this is from Bar Ehrman.
scholar, but you know,
It's textual.
because you know, Zakir Naik could say something about medicine, but we're wrong about it.
Zakir Naik is not authoritative in
Neither is Bar Ehrman on Islam. I doubt he knows anything.
Listen very carefully.
Right, but you see,
Why are you not talking down on Bar Ehrman earlier on?
But the discovery that has been made is not connected to the New Testament. It is connected to the Quran. Since 1932, the university has had, among its collected works, a virtually 42-page fragment of the Quran. Recently, they decided to see if they could come up.
Sorry.
That's fine. With a relatively. Sorry.
Don't record me, please.
Yeah, thank you, Jazakallah. With a relatively precise date for these pages. And so they have a carbon
What's that reference?
done. The results are none less than astounding. Let me say, this is Bar Ehrman, let me say that carbon 14 dating is indeed a science, but it's not highly exact science, and I agree with that. It dates organic material based on the deterioration of its carbon 14 isotope, and so can give a range of dates that are statistically determined to be relative accuracy. So far,
And that was done by a Christian as well. So
yeah, exactly. Professor David Thomas.
David Thomas, yeah.
Even so, this dating is remarkable. Wait. This is Bible. This dating is remarkable. The dating was done by lab devoted to such things at Oxford. Wait, one second. The dating was done by a lab devoted to such things in Oxford. It turns out that there is a 95% chance that these pages were produced between 568 and 645 CE. How good is that? This is Bar Ehrman. How good is that? Between The Prophet Muhammad, who in traditional Islamic teaching was responsible, okay, this is his own historic account, was responsible for producing the Quran, was engaged in his active ministry in 610 to 632. This is the whole point I'm trying to make. These pages may have been produced during his lifetime or in a decade or so later. In case anyone is missing the significance of that, here's a comparison. The first time we have any two-page manuscript fragment of the New Testament is from around the year 200 CE. That's 170 years after Jesus' death in 30 CE. Imagine if we found 2 pages of text that contain portions, say, of the Sermon on the Mount in almost exactly the same form as we have them in what is now our Gospel of Matthew, and suppose that these pages received a card reporting dating of 30 BCE to 40 CE, would we be ecstatic or what? Since I am a scholar of early Christianity rather than Islam, this discovery in Birmingham raises all sorts of questions for me that I will not raise for any of my Muslim friends and neighbors. Wow. One is a historical question and one is a question of modern Christian attempts to prove the true claims of Christianity. My historical question is this: if these pages of the Quran do indeed show that the text of the Quran is virtually the same in, say, 630 to 640 CE as it is in 1630 to 1640, as it is in 2015, which is when the Birmingham Manuscript was discovered, that would suggest that Muslims are indeed correct, that at least in some circles, it would obviously be impossible to prove that it was true in all circles, and I agree with that. Scribes of the Quran simply didn't change it. They made sure they copied it the same every time, word for word. Now, it may, before asterisks, it may be that these newly dated fragments have significant textual variance from the rest of the manuscript original of the Quran. And if they do, that too will be immensely interesting. But my sense is that they must not be much, if at all different. Otherwise, that is the story that will be all over the news. And so back to my question, if Muslim scholars of the centuries from the very beginning made dead sure that when they copied the sacred text, they didn't change anything, why didn't Christian scribes do the same thing? I could carry on further. So this is what
He's referencing Christians. He's referencing
this is why I factored
not
in
Muslims.
comparing
That's
with-
amazing.
It's amazing.
I'm amazed by that.
Is Barnum a Christian?
Barnum.
Okay, wait a sec.
David, do you have anything to say?
Right. But he comes
homie,
from a Christian background.
pause for a
so you
second,
have to
okay?
say, no, you have to be honest. Just be honest and say, okay, fair enough.
So,
that is amazing.
if I ask you to repeat what he said, you do it.
First of all, thank you. First of all,
All right, awesome job.
No, first of all.
So, Raihan,
anyone who's
here is
honest,
the issue.
say that's amazing.
So, despite what Bart Ehrman has said, it still poses the same problem in that if the text is the same from the Birmingham manuscript as what you have today, there's a likelihood still, an equal likelihood, that that was that way before Muhammad was even born.
I'm not going to repeat again. I said
So the argument that we
the
have,
comment about
again, Bar Ehrman's argument is similar to my own.
Okay, let me give a hypothetical. Just
Wait
like
a
Barnum.
second.
Wait. If you have the Gospel of
I
Matthew,
wasn't done.
Okay,
You read for a long time and I wasn't done.
Okay.
So,
From Bar
Bar Ehrman is arguing the same thing as I am. It's great that it's the same.
Thank you very much.
However, it's the same from potentially before Muhammad was born.
Thank you very much.
So that would mean that the Quran is not Wahi.
Exactly.
The Quran doesn't come from Muhammad.
Right.
It could come from somebody
Now,
else.
David, can I ask you this question?
No, I'm not done. Now, here's the second point about the Quran, about the manuscripts. The stories in them, 18, 19, 20, these are ones that all come from pre-existing sources.
Actually, there's a gentleman, he mentioned the same thing.
Which is the issue.
That's not
so,
an issue.
So now, not only do the manuscripts potentially come from before Muhammad is born, but all of the stories in there are already very popular stories, no new revelation. Lastly, on the point of comparing it to what we have in Christianity from Bart Ehrman's claim, if Christians had text that was dated from between 70 BC into the 2nd century, that would be an issue, because now the gospel message could be compiled by Jesus.
No, it
It
wouldn't be an
could
issue.
be from somebody else
wouldn't be an
who
issue.
came before he was
Because
even
you
born.
Christians would have a good claim. It's
So
possible
that's
that
why it's a problem.
within the first century.
We
Now,
need more
now,
certainty.
Wait. Let me ask you this question.
So again, Raihan, the text is the same, but there's equal likelihood that Muhammad is the composer or somebody before Muhammad was even born. So why, and my question remains the same, why should I believe that the correct dating is Muhammad's prophethood and not prior?
Okay, David, you're just regurgitating the same
Yes,
response.
because you haven't answered me.
Anyway.
Oh, your answer.
Let me ask you, David.
One more second. Your answer is this. Oh, you Christians have nothing. That's not an answer to the Islamic problem.
But you have the high moral to critique the Birmingham
Yes,
manuscript.
because you think
When you said that it is possible,
you
it's within
think
the lifetime
that
of
your
the
book comes from God in a non-inspirational but direct fashion.
Okay, David.
We don't believe that.
Okay, let me know
So
when you're
therefore, the criteria that you have to suffice.
No, recording. No, he's not.
Well, you can record him if you want.
No, I'm recording
What,
him.
he's recording me?
I'm recording him.
But if you want, you can record him.
I'm recording
You can
him.
record him if you want.
I don't want to be.
All right, well, it's recorded. So go away. Anyway,
I'm recording David.
Let him.
so
I'm recording him. I'm recording him.
when it comes to the Islamic issue, if the footing is equal, that means that there is a likelihood that Muhammad didn't even write the Quran or even author it.
Okay, David.
Right? But you believe that the Quran is from God in a direct fashion.
Okay.
So it's possible that God was giving the Quran to somebody before Muhammad was even born.
Okay, David. Okay, David.
Can you answer that?
Yeah, I'm going to ask you. If you have a discovery of the New Testament that they have radiocarbon dated, for example, the Gospel of Matthew. Let's say. Are you listening?
Always listening, always.
Good.
No matter what face I make, no matter where I look, always listening.
I know. I guarantee. 100% I will guarantee that if in the future a scholar has radiocarbon dated a parchment from the Gospel of Matthew that is within the first century Christianity, all Christians would celebrate. That's factual. If you discover a New Testament, I'm using the Gospel of Matthew as an example. If you're able to find, if in the future you find a fragment, let alone complete fragment of the Gospel of Matthew or the Gospel of John or the Gospel of Mark, and they have radiocarbon dated, the date range between, let's say, 30 CE up until 150, I guarantee you all Christians will celebrate. Because why? Because it's confirming the traditional narrative about the Gospel of Matthew. Now, they don't have that. The only thing they want to hold on is, well, it's equally possible that this was before the prophet. I never disputed that. But you don't even give me a possibility of any fragments within the first
What's
century.
your argument
My argument is
for
that you
why?
have no critique. You have no place. I'm being very respectful with this. David, look, I'm trying to be respectful here. I don't want to offend any Christians.
Have I offended you today?
Fantastic. No, you haven't. I'm just
So
saying.
then do the same thing to me then.
Good. I mean this in a respectful way. You, as Christians, you have no legs to stand upon critiquing the preservation of the Quran, critiquing the radiocarbon dated, when you don't have a single New Testament manuscript that is even the possibility that is within the first century. At least with our Birmingham manuscript, it's a possibility.
So, because I've asked you the question 5 times and you haven't answered me, I'm going to lead to a conclusion. So,
let's get the
Raihan,
conclusion.
your faith is based on a possibility
No,
with no certainty.
that's one. No, the reason why it is Christians don't appreciate the Isnad. They don't appreciate oral tradition. They don't appreciate.
We do.
No, you don't.
We have the exact same thing.
You don't. I'm sorry.
Because
you don't.
the
You
gospel
don't.
was
Because-
transferred
He's
in
the
some
same
capacity
person.
before it was
Let me
written.
complete. He's the same person, and Chris, that wants to critique about Ahlul Qira'at, right? You don't care about Sanad. You don't care about Isnad. Okay? People like Arthur Jeffrey didn't care about Isnad. They didn't care about Sanad.
If you did, you would know who Matthew
Yeah? That's the reason why I'm bringing up written text of the Quran, because we have evidences that is possible within the first century. You don't have that in the New Testament.
So your faith is based on a possibility.
No, my faith is based on certainty. for other
Awesome.
reasons. But
Now
I'm-
tell me why you are certain
Yes.
that those writings that you have in the folios come from Muhammad's prophethood.
Right. The reason is because when I'm talking about the Birmingham manuscript, I'm given as a point of reference in comparing comparing with Christians who want to critique. No, you repeat. The reason why is because when you're going to talk about
Just blur him if you don't mind.
when you talk about
Look, I'm telling you now, don't over them. Yeah? No, I'm not going to stand here. I'm not going to move. You come here. You come here.
it's okay.
Well, there's no law against filming people in the corner, so if you don't want to film, just go somewhere else.
Let's do our conclusion, yeah? The reason why I brought up the Birmingham manuscript is because a lot of Christians claiming that the Bible is historically viable.
Yes, it is.
On the textual
Unlike the Quran.
Right, no, but you don't.
The Quran isn't historically viable at all.
Hang on, let me ask you this question, David. Do you have any manuscript New Testament that date ranges within the 1st century? Yes or no?
No, not as of yet. Not as of yet.
Huh?
Not as of yet.
Thank you very much. So why are you critiquing the Birmingham
That's not good. That's not good enough.
Why are you critiquing the Birmingham
Because
manuscript?
it could potentially be pre-Islamic.
Fantastic. So until you find that fragment,
The manuscript could be pre-Islamic, implying that the Wahi that was received by Muhammad already existed.
I never disputed that, David.
So wait. So Raihan, look at me. Raihan, look at me. So there's possible Wahi that pre-exists Muhammad.
No.
Okay. Tell me why that isn't the
Because
case.
the oral tradition. We have
Okay.
the mass transmission.
Right.
But the reason I
You
do that,
have
wait,
those
hang on,
things,
hang on.
but when it comes to the text,
Sorry, the reason
the
why.
text appears to suggest
No, wait.
that those pieces of Wahi
No.
can be pre-Islamic.
No.
Yes, because of the dating.
No. Hang on. The reason I brought up the Birmingham manuscript is in response to the Christians who want to critique about the Birmingham manuscript.
Yes, because the
that's
Birmingham
why- so what
manuscript
I
has
did-
many issues.
What I did is that, look, you hold your faith in the New Testament. You believe the New Testament is more historically viable and feasible than the Quran.
Absolutely.
So that's why I'm making a comparative approach. I'm comparing
Right,
your New
but
Testament.
you can't. You
That's why.
haven't.
When
So
did I say I put my
you
faith in the
refuse.
Birmingham manuscript? I never
You
said
won't
that.
actually answer my question.
never said that, David.
All you're doing is appealing to possibility,
I
and
did say
then
that. I did say that.
so literally what you're doing is a tuko kwe, literally, right? So the reason it's a tuko kwe is because you never give any evidence for why your position is correct.
Because you don't
All
appreciate-
you've done,
you don't appreciate
wait
the
a
sanad.
second,
You don't
all
appreciate
you've
the sanad.
done,
You doubt
the
about the Islamic
sanad
narrative.
has nothing to
Exactly.
do.
So I'm using what? Secular
Those
evidence.
things have nothing to do with the text. Okay? So the problem remains.
It's just empty barrels.
The problem remains. What you're doing is a fallacy because you never provided any evidence for why your position was right. You instantly just jumped
Hang on.
to Christianity.
Hang on. My position.
Wait, who's there? Oh, him.
Hang on. My position is right. That is possible.
Okay,
as within the life
but
of the Prophet.
okay,
That's the
why?
one disputed.
Why?
Because the gateway suggests so.
Okay.
Now my question is.
Now,
does
why
you
is
think-
that more
wait,
likely
hang on.
than before?
Hang on,
That's what I'm asking the whole time.
Hang on. You're the one that's critiquing the Birmingham manuscript.
Yes, for three reasons.
Right. Now, do you have any radiocarbon dating of the New Testament?
I
that is
believe
within the
I already
Yes or
answered
no?
that question.
What is it?
But you have
Not
yet to answer my question.
That's it. That's it.
Okay, Raihan. Because
Now, if you're interested
because
in sanad,
because I know you listen,
you don't
right?
appreciate the oral tradition.
So Raihan, I will ask you one more time.
He doubted Islamic standards. So even if I'm
Raihan?
giving evidence for the hadith, he's not going to.
Raihan, why are you speaking with him and not me?
Because you're not engaging.
Okay,
You're not
Raihan,
engaging my point.
because I know you reflect and listen, I will ask you the question again. Why is it more likely that your dating preference is correct than an earlier one? Go away and think about that.
I can take the opinion that this is possible.
Why?
You can
Why is it more likely? Why?
Because it's dated within, it's possible that the date range is within the first century. It's within the life of the Prophet. So I give my answer.
No,
Now, the
but
question-
why is that date range more likely than the previous?
Because we believe traditionally that Surah
Okay,
19,
so
Surah
it's a
18,
belief.
Surah 20, from that Birmingham manuscript, yes.
Okay,
Yes.
so you can't actually ground your belief in reality.
No, when did I say that, David?
Okay,
He doesn't
so
understand
so
that.
Raihan, your belief is then based upon speculation and make believe.
It's not speculation, David. My strongest argument is not the Birmingham manuscript.
But do you see how that it presents a problem for your faith?
No, it's a problem for you.
It
Because you-
isn't.
No, because you can't critique the Birmingham manuscript.
I can very easily,
Hold on,
and I have been doing so the whole
hang on,
time.
hang on. The reason why. Wait, the reason. No.
It doesn't actually.
David.
Can you explain to me why it does?
Wait.
Why? Help me out.
We're talking about the Park.
Wait.
Sure.
Now the Park could have been made before the birth of the Prophet.
Okay.
It could have been written on after his birth.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
Yes.
Can you provide the evidence, please, for why that interpretation is correct?
Because of all that oral
Because it's in
tradition.
our Islamic
Because of
tradition.
all our serum.
Yes,
Because of the Sahaba.
exactly.
Right.
Because of our Islam
So,
and
because of your isnads, it's correct that what is written there was written in his time and not beforehand.
You don't care about the Sunnah. You don't care about chain of transmission.
Yeah, all you do is come
don't
back 200
trust.
years after.
That's the
Okay.
reason I'm using. This is the reason why. This is the reason
So-
why I'm giving them.
Pointless.
No, no, wait, hang on. Wait.
Hold on.
This is the reason why. Wait a second.
I like what he said. I like what he said. No, it's even better than what you said.
I got a
So,
piece of paper today.
hold on now.
Which was created 20 years ago.
Yes.
I'll write on it.
Yes.
In 100 years later, if they do a dating on that piece of paper, they're going to get a date range of
Exactly.
today
Thank you.
to 20 years ago.
Thank you.
Do you understand?
Yeah.
That's all it is.
There's a difference, however.
But
There's a difference.
the writing was done today.
That's it.
A paper was
There's a
created
difference.
20 years
There's
ago.
a difference, however.
But our example
Why
is,
in the desert? Why would they have parchment sitting around for 20 years?
that was written on
Right?
that date.
So it's highly unlikely. It's highly unlikely. You brought it up. It's highly unlikely that in the desert they would have paper sitting around for that long unused.
Prove it.
Look,
Just like you said,
It would spoil.
if they wait.
It would spoil.
what was what?
The hide that the parchment is written on. It would spoil.
So what happens is it survived.
It would get dry, brittle, and decompose.
Exactly.
Doesn't make sense.
No, wait, hold on. Why? Wait a second.
Hang on a second.
Wait a second. So you're saying that in Mecca or Medina, they had paper stores that were older than Muhammad. Is that what you're saying?
Is that what's that?
So you're saying that in Mecca and Medina, they had stores of parchment that were older than Muhammad?
Possibly.
Possibly.
Exactly.
Can
That's
you
the whole point.
can you
I'm
provide
talking about
any evidence why? Because the problem remains. If we're talking about possibility, then the possibility still exists that before Muhammad was even born.
I never disputed
Okay,
that.
so again, my question remains. If the only reason why I should believe that, well, that's what he said so far. He stated that it corroborates the sanad and your tradition, that these things come from Muhammad's time. I am asking you a question. Why is that the preferred dating versus beforehand?
No. The reason is because this is for us as Muslims.
A faith-based claim.
Yes. Now, do you have a faith-based claim of any of the New Testament manuscript that is within the first century?
Sure, we believe it was there before.
No, you don't. Where's the manuscript? Show it.
It's a faith-based claim.
Show it.
So faith can be without manuscripts.
Show it. Show it, please. Show me a New Testament manuscript that is within the first century. Show me.
Okay, so here's an issue. So here's the issue. Two things there. Because you have an answer, I will move slightly over to my view. Right? Well, it's not really a conclusion, right? But effectively, yeah, but Bar Ehrman says that those components are preserved. But they are preserved from before Muhammad was born, which is bad for your faith. Because there must have been a prophet who was there before Muhammad.
That's fine. Pleasure. Pleasure discussion.
You know,
Think about that.
You know.
Well, you both admitted that your faith is based on speculation and possibility.
When we go into Sanad, and we'll speak to you later, like next week, when we go into the Sanad, into the Isnad, why the Quran is mutawatir, would that be convincing for you?
Well, you have to explain why the Quran borrows from stories that come before it too, which is also bad.
Let's talk about next week then.
All right.
Talk about next week or the week after.
Sure. Abraham in the fire, Mary being in the temple, all from apocryphal texts.
No problem.
Let's talk about it.
No problem.
We want one thing for you, if you'd like.
No, if I could defend you.
You haven't today, but you didn't answer the question, which is the problem.
I believe I've answered.
Shall I give you a hand back? Okay. All right.
Have a good day. Take care.
All right. Take care.
Take care, man. Take care. Have a good day. Take care.
But I'm sure you'll think about it and come back next week with a better answer. Why is your dating right? That's all.
Okay, no problem.
If it's equally as possible, why is yours right?
It's fine. Why it's
All right.
equally possible is within the life of the Prophet.
Okay. And I can argue for before. Can you argue for?
If you find the New Testament manuscript within the first century, come back to
So, well, Jay was here first. So Jay, come in and do your piece, and then I'll give mine. Give your piece first.
Say your piece. Come on, juice.
So it was me and another Christian brother of mine, and we're talking to, I forget his name, what's the guy's name? I forget his name.
Raihan.
Raihan. And he was asking questions around who we know, how do we know who the authors are for the Gospels, right? And then we're going back and forth. And then essentially his argument rested on certain statements made by Eusebius
Regarding Papias.
Who says that Mark wrote down what Peter said in regards to the sayings of Jesus.
Sure. And not in order.
It was, it was an orderly account. And then the Mark that we have is an orderly account.
Okay, so?
Right? So that's what his argument was.
Is that an argument?
But then we went back and forth, and then I posed a question around the Quran as well, because he was arguing that we don't have any we don't have any manuscripts of the Bible dating in the 1st century. His argumentation was essentially reliant. It was essentially what he fails to acknowledge is that the conclusions or the information we have about the Bible is based on the manuscripts we have so far. Clearly, people in the 1st century or the 2nd century would have had more manuscripts to work with. It's just that over time, some of them, eroded. So his argument was, really based on that quote from Eusebius quoting Papias, and then I turned it around, asking him a question, question about the Quran, like what's the earliest Quranic, manuscripts that we have dated to the time of Muhammad. And then he quoted the Birmingham folio, which is what sparked this conversation, about the datings around the manuscripts and the possibility that what is described in the Birmingham folio is pre-Islamic. And that's how, we ended up in this.
Thank you. I'll just add that I came over and carried on from the conversation because I happen to know a bit about how to critique the Birmingham folio. It's a simple, twist of arguments. It will simply be, there's only 4 folios, there aren't many more than that, and they happen to cover bits of Surah 18, 19, 20. Now there's 2 problems here. Every of the 4 folios has a wildly different dating. That is why we have such a drastic difference between the possible dating of 568. That is the reason why we have such a radical difference between 568 and then 645. Now, when you have these wild differences, it's because we've averaged the dates of the 4 very, very wildly different dated folios. So, there is a possibility that these folios could come from before Muhammad was born. Now, what is the and there's an equal possibility that it could come from when Muhammad was a prophet? What is the argument that he came at the time when he was a prophet versus before he was born? That's what I want to know. Because I can argue that it came before he was born because the stories are borrowed from pre-Islamic texts. Like the infamous Gospel of Thomas in the case of Surah 19 with Maryam. Like the Neshana or the Romans of Alexandria in the case of Surah 18 with Dul-Qarnayn. Or like in Surah Taha, aka Surah 20, when they borrow directly from Exodus 3 and 4 regarding Moses meeting Allah at the burning bush. That will be my argument for why the earlier dating is correct. I asked Raihan multiple times, why is the later dating correct? And he couldn't tell me why it was correct. He simply said multiple times, there is an equal possibility. So, that would mean that his faith is based on possibilities and no certainties. And regarding his tu quoque, where he instantly says, well, you Christians have nothing from the 1st century, fine. Like Jay mentioned, yes, clearly in the 2nd centuries, they were taking from things in the 1st centuries. Because we don't have the extant documents does not mean that our faith is false. Because even for the Muslims, they don't have anything for Surah 1 or Surah 2 or Surah 3 or any of the other surahs that are included in those 4 folios. So can we then claim that everything else comes later? No, not necessarily. There are other ways that they can identify it, like referring to the Isnad or like referring to other manuscripts. In the same capacity, we can refer to early attestation from fathers and writers of the church who freely quote from the text in Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. We can appeal to the Didache that quotes heavily from Matthew and Mark, dated from before the fall of the temple. So we can appeal to multiple things, and the fact that for the majority of the first century, before there was a pervasiveness of written documentation, these gospels were sung as homilies in churches. So we can appeal to a number of things to prove that the first century belief is truly viable, even without direct extant documentation. And my very last point, Raihan made an interesting claim. He says that we wish in Christianity that we had something like what they have. I actually disagree. If we had some documented text of the New Testament, but was dated from 70 BC into 45 AD, that would be a problem. Because now the teachings of Jesus might not be unique to him, but might come from a time before him. So for example, say the Beatitudes. If we find that in a text that's from 70 BC, then that's an issue. So actually we don't want that, and that is why they have this issue. But maybe next week he'll respond to me. But yeah, in the meantime, keep praying for him. There we go. I didn't do jack, man. It was Jay. but whatever the case is. That's fine. I'm curious about these crowds.
Yes, let's all.
How are you going? Wait, let's go. I remember you from last time.